I want to welcome all of you and wish you a very good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you joining us from around the world. And thank you for joining us today for this informational webinar for Kellogg School of Management Executive Education's online program, Customer Loyalty, a Strategic Approach. We are so thrilled to have all of you here with us today. Now, we're also thrilled to have with us today our amazing faculty who built this program, who built this course. We're so thrilled to have him on the line with us today. Professor Tom O'Toole, the Associate Dean of Executive Education and Clinical Professor of Marketing at Kellogg. Professor O'Toole, good morning, sir.
Good morning, Mark. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you. Thank you for being here and look forward to talking with you a little more in a couple minutes here. Great to be here.
Thank you so much, Professor. Don't worry, I'll be handing it off to him very, very soon. The professor is one of the best in the field that there is when it comes to this. So you want to hear more of him and less of me, and I know that. So I'll get you to Professor O'Toole as quickly as possible. But before we do that, why should you choose Northwestern Kellogg Executive Education? Well, in brief, there are many, many reasons to choose Kellogg, but in brief, we want to talk about our top faculty, our peer-to-peer connections, and the rich interactive experience that you will enjoy. Now, our top Kellogg faculty starting off, like Professor O'Toole, Kellogg has renowned thought leaders who will share their knowledge and facilitate thoughtful discussion throughout the program. But also, one thing that's left off of here, Kellogg's renowned thought leaders are also the leading practitioners in their fields. So Kellogg faculty are not just incredible academics with great academic credentials, but they're also practitioners in their field that have worked for decades and are continuing to work in those fields today. And also you will find that this is a high quality, transformative learning experience with timely, actionable content. Everything you learn in this program is meant to be applied immediately to your current job and future jobs and careers as well. So you'll be learning material that you can apply right away, even while you're still taking the program. You might learn something in week 3 that you can apply immediately to your job and tell our amazing course leaders and even tell Professor O'Toole, hey, that thing I just learned, course isn't even over yet. And it's already paying dividends for us and for where you work. So who is this program for? Well, ideally, this program is for you. That's why you're on this call. But this program is especially ideal for people working in these kind of spaces, these kind of sectors, if this is your purview at your firm or at your workplace, then this program is ideal for you. If you are a sales or business development leader, if you are a general manager, a marketing executive or a marketing manager, a loyalty manager working specifically in the customer loyalty space, if you're a customer experience manager, or if you're a marketing and strategy consultant working with multiple different firms, or if you're a growth hacker. These are the kind of job titles that we find a lot of our students have, and that a lot of our students with these job titles get a lot out of this program. So that's who this program is ideal for, who is built for. And this program is designed to introduce strategies and frameworks that you can use immediately to maximize customer loyalty at your organization. That is who this program is for. That is who this course is built for. And the best possible person in the world to have built this course and to teach it is Professor Tom O'Toole. Now, Professor Tom O'Toole's work at Kellogg focuses on connecting data science to business value creation, data-driven marketing, customer strategy, customer value management, and loyalty programs. He is the author of Branding Services in the Digital Era. Before coming to Kellogg, Professor O'Toole was the Chief Marketing Officer and Senior Vice President and President of Mileage Plus of United Airlines, which at the time was the largest travel loyalty program and the top-rated frequent flyer program in the world. Before taking all that on at United, Professor O'Toole was the Chief Marketing Officer and CIO for Hyatt Hotels. And Professor O'Toole is currently a senior advisor for McKinsey and has served on the board of directors for 4 different companies that you can see listed there. And Professor O'Toole, I really hope as I hand it off to him that he'll tell the story also about how he built this course when he first got to Kellogg. So that's what I'm looking forward to the most. So without further ado and without further delay, I want to hand things off to Professor O'Toole. Take it away, sir.
Thanks, Mark, and thank you everyone for joining us. Whenever I look at the list of where all of you are in the chat, I try to mentally go through and see if I know the time zone where everyone is. And the one that I admit I didn't know was Malta. I had to look up the local time zone in Malta. So thank you for joining us from early morning in Alaska and Asia, or late at night in Asia, to to late in the afternoon in Malta, wherever you may be. Really appreciate you joining us. Before I get into the course that we're going to talk about here, I want to anticipate a question that I would have if I were you. I always try to think, what would I think if I was on the other side of the screen? And one of the things I would wonder is, I wonder if this program is really a part of Kellogg, the real core top-rated business school in the world, Kellogg, or if it's just sort of something Kellogg puts their name on. And I can tell you unequivocally that this program and the others like it that we do are very, very much part of the real organic, what I think of as the core of Kellogg. And that, it's the same faculty. This course that we're going to be talking about here is the same course that I do in the in-person MBA program. I'm actually teaching it this quarter in the MBA program for the 2-year MBA students here, and it's the same content. And so this is very much part of the core of Kellogg, and frankly, becoming more so every day. I have a meeting this afternoon with our dean, Francesca Cornelli, and talking about this set of programs. This among them is actually one of the main subjects that we're going to be talking about. So just wanted to, again, if I were you, I'd wonder that. And so address that. So as Mark mentioned, let me tell you a little bit about the backstory of where this course came from. Because if you understand where the course came from, it will really then immediately explain the entire flow and syllabus of the course. So as Mark touched on, so I spent decades, literally a little more than decades, doing in my business career exactly the subjects that we talk about in this course. And I retired from United Airlines at the end of 2016 and had, things that I intended to do after I retired. And frankly, loyalty programs were not at the top of the list. I'd spent a lot of time doing that, knew a lot about it, but, was interested in data analytics and e-commerce and other things. And about a month after I retired, the phone rang and unexpectedly someone called, and it was the chief marketing officer for a very large global restaurant chain, not McDonald's, even though they're right here in Chicago, a very large global restaurant chain that I imagine everyone knows and has eaten at. And she goes, we don't have a loyalty program. We want to develop a loyalty program. Can you develop a loyalty program for us? And I said, well, if a loyalty program is the right answer for your company, sure, but let's back up and let's be sure that a loyalty program really is the best vehicle for the business strategy of your company and your customer strategy, and that the economics work in your category. And if all that is the case, then sure, we can design a loyalty program. So then maybe a month later, I got the identical call from the chief marketing officer of a big cruise line who you would know. And it was the same question. Can you develop a loyalty program for us? And the answer was, well, if that's the right, direction for your company, sure, but let's back up. Let's back up to your customer strategy, to your business strategy. Let's be sure that there is a sound business case for the loyalty program. And then if a loyalty program is the right answer, sure, we can develop one. And over time, again and again and again, got that same question. Can you develop a loyalty program? Everybody always wants to jump right to design a loyalty program, and found myself saying again and again and again, back up. Let's go about this in a strategic way, starting with your customer strategy. And then is there a business case for a loyalty program? And then we can get into designing a loyalty program. And that back up became this course. So that, and it's literally the same content. I'm using, some of us actually have taken some content out of this program and I'm using it with the MBA students. But that back up, let's take a strategic approach to the development of customer loyalty really explains the whole course. So let me just walk you through the flow of the course, and then we'll talk a little bit more about each of the modules. And a module is a week. So it's a 6-week course. So each of these subjects is a week. And so we start out talking about customer differentiation, customer value. Then we get into the enabling systems of customer relationship management, focus on customer life cycle and customer journey. Then we turn to some of my favorite subjects, loyalty drivers, personalization, and what's called trigger marketing. Then we get into the question of, okay, having talked about the design of a loyalty strategy up until that point, is there a business case for it? Because the time to decide if there's a business case for your loyalty program is before you launch it, not after. And so we get into how do you do a basic business case for a loyalty program. Then we get into what I call the nuts and bolts of designing a loyalty program. And then ultimately focus on some special topics that I'll touch on here in a little more detail when we come to that week. So Mark, if you want to turn to week one. So here's the flow of the course. Week one, which in the parlance of the course, we call module one, but week one of 6, we really start with talking about customer heterogeneity. What does that mean? That means that there are a variety of different types and profiles and segments of customers. And then how do we differentiate those? And more importantly, how do we value them, both at the segment level and really what's the most important focus at the individual customer level. And we talk about a basic approach to learning how to calculate customer lifetime value, because customer lifetime value really is foundational to what we refer to as a customer-centric approach to the business strategy. We also get into, by the way, what customer centricity means and what it doesn't mean. And the term is used a lot, and we talk about, okay, what does that term mean, and what does that term not mean? And so then customer centricity ultimately leads us to customer lifetime value. Then in week 2, we actually focus on 2 different subjects. First, we talk about, as I mentioned, customer relationship management and customer relationship management systems. We don't really get into a lot of the technical underpinnings of the system, but provide what I'll call a managerial overview of the use of customer data for customer relationship management. Then we talk about 2 subjects, both of which are very relevant to the course, and yet which I find, and I'm always sort of surprised, even the MBA students here at Kellogg tend to confuse the 2 subjects, and they are customer life cycle and customer journey. They're both very closely related to the subject of a strategic approach to customer loyalty, but they mean different things. And so we explain, and of the 2, probably customer life cycle is a little more important to the subject in this course, but they're both very tightly related to the strategic approach to building customer loyalty over time. So we explain customer life cycle, and then we go into customer journey. Then in week 3, we talk about, as I mentioned, 3 of my favorite subjects, loyalty drivers, personalization, and trigger marketing. It's interesting. There are many books and articles and webinars and everything out there on the subject of customer loyalty. And I read a whole bunch of the books in trying to find a textbook for my course. And yet what I find is interesting is that the subject of loyalty drivers, you don't really read or hear much about. And yet in practice, when you're doing this, as I say, when you're doing this in the real world, the subject of loyalty drivers is very, very important. And what do we mean by loyalty drivers? We mean identifying the factors that really cause or drive customer loyalty. And why is that important? Because that's key to not just how we design a program, but also where we make our investment. Where do we make the investment to have the greatest impact on customer loyalty? And then we focus on 2 methods that right now, in particular, personalization, are very, very the subject of intense investment and focus by many companies. And I suggest that this is not going to be simply a passing phenomenon. Personalization is becoming foundational to the practice of marketing. And what does personalization mean? It means if you take customer centricity all the way to the identifiable individual customer level, how do we design marketing for Mark, and how does the marketing that we deliver to Mark differ from the marketing that we deliver to Francesco, and so on. And so, personalization, Mark mentioned in the introduction that I do a lot of work for McKinsey, a big consulting firm, and much of it in the last 2 years has been on the subject of personalization and companies investing in and enabling in a big way personalization. And so we talk about that, and then we talk about a specific method of personalization or use of personalization, what's called trigger marketing, and go into that. And in my previous life and in companies who I know, trigger marketing is standard marketing practice 52 weeks a year today. And more importantly, it works. So, and then we talk about the fact that a customer loyalty strategy really needs to be an enterprise strategy. Just yesterday, coincidentally, I had the head of digital and analytics for a very large global retailer came and talked with my class here at Kellogg. And one of the points he made, not even knowing that this was one of the points that I make, is that a loyalty strategy needs to be a company strategy, a business strategy, not simply something the marketing people are doing. And I always say, if a loyalty program is just something the marketing people are doing, at best, it will be suboptimal. More likely it will fail if it's just a marketing initiative. It really requires the whole enterprise for reasons that we go into, for reasons that we go into in terms of the frontline operational implementation and the IT enablement and the finance business case and so on. So we talk about loyalty strategy as an enterprise strategy. In week number 4, then we get into that question that I highlighted about, how do you develop what I call a basic business case for a loyalty program? And what I provide you with is a basic model for a business case. And it's basic, not in the sense that it's not fully accurate. It's simply that if you look at everybody who's on this call, for example, and everybody who takes the course, we're in a myriad of different industries, from retail to B2B to financial services and so on and so on and so on. And so what I provide you with is a business case model for a loyalty program that is applicable in any business. And if it's basically the same thing we did at United Airlines, it's just that there you have to have a lot more detail around certain specifics that are, relevant to that business. But it gives you a basic business case for determining in advance, if I design this loyalty program and I introduce it, do I, based on the best that I can project that it will have a positive business value for the enterprise. And, I'm always surprised, having worked with a lot of companies on exactly the subject of this course, this is the step that companies skip or really don't pay enough attention to, surprisingly often. Even big companies that are very astute and very smart tend to not focus enough on this step in the development of loyalty programs, and that will almost always come back and cause you problems after you launch. The time to figure out if there's a positive business case for your loyalty program is before you launch it, not after. And there have been times in working with companies on the subject, and I always sit there and think to myself, if you had taken week 4 of my online course, we wouldn't be in this position. So that's what we talk about there. Then in week 5, and bolts of designing a loyalty program. There are, as I explain it, 3 big dimensions you have to work with in designing a loyalty program. Redeemable future value, which is the earning and redemption mechanism of a loyalty program. And then differentiated customer features and benefits, and then status tiers, some differentiation by customer value and identification. And we talk about, the series of design decisions that you make in designing a loyalty program. And I very much view it as a design process, designing a loyalty program. Then in week 6, I mentioned we get into some special topics, and what these are, what we talk about in week 6 are subjects that either students in the MBA version of this course or previous students in the online version have asked us to go deeper on and said, hey, can you go into more detail on that? And so the subjects we go deeper on in week 6 are B2B. I mean, everything we talk about in this whole course is as relevant to business as it is to business to consumer. But we go deeper on what if you're doing this in B2B. We go deeper on what if you're doing this in a consumer products business where you can't get the end user customer information the way you can if you're in retail or financial services or travel or something. What do you do if you sell, bicycles or potato chips or diapers? What do you do in that case? Then we talk about introducing loyalty programs in new categories, like, for example, healthcare. Right now, this predates COVID. This isn't because of COVID. This was happening before COVID. There's an enormous amount of interest in applying the subjects we talk about in this course in the healthcare industry. And a lot of people are really focusing intensively on that. And then we talk about how do you apply what we focus on in the course here in a small or medium-sized business. If you're doing this, in a startup or close to a startup, and then And then, in a medium-sized business, what do I always think, what do I do if I'm not in some big global company? My company has 12 people. Is this relevant to me? And try to make sure that it is. And then we talk about, so where are loyalty programs headed going forward in the digital era? So that's a quick tour of the waterfront there. And then that's the sequence of the course. One of the things that the course includes that I have found in feedback from your predecessors in this course is actually one of the parts of the course that people like the most are video interviews with these 6 people here. And they're all people, 5 of the 6 I have worked with. Some of them I've worked very, very closely with for many years. And all were selected by me. I'll tell you who they are real quick. Jess Wang was the co-head of the loyalty practice at McKinsey, co-lead of the loyalty practice at McKinsey. Jess has since moved on to leading another practice in McKinsey. Marge Brea is one of the smartest people I ever met on B2B marketing. Marge was at Hewlett Packard. She was at SAP. She was at MicroStrategy. She was at, and then 8x8 is a competitor to Zoom. Joshua Cantor, you probably haven't heard of his current company, but I guarantee you've heard of the one where he really made his name. And that was at Caesars Casinos based in Las Vegas, but obviously a worldwide gaming company. And as you may know, the Caesars Total Rewards program, their loyalty program, was for many years held up as, model of a leading edge loyalty program. And Joshua was the guy who headed it. I mean, Joshua was responsible for it. And so, and also very progressive on the subject of just customer-centric business strategy and marketing in general. Gannon Jones is the only one on the list who I have not worked with personally, but knew him by reputation. And what Gannon talks with us about, he has since actually become the chief marketing officer for Aetna Health Insurance. And so Gannon is now CMO at Aetna. And before that, Gannon worked at Kraft and Allstate and a number of other places. And what Gannon talks with us about in the video is how do we apply these methods in a consumer products company, like when he was at Kraft. Praveen Sharma is one of the smartest people I know in the world on these subjects. And I mean that. Praveen and I worked very closely at United Airlines together for 7 years. And Praveen is actually in a key role at digital and analytics right now at Walmart. And so Praveen has a big job at Walmart right now. And then Jeff Zidell is, as you see there, with a company called Roomit by CWT in the travel industry. But what Jeff really talks with us about in this course is, you may recall a few years ago, several years ago now, Hyatt relaunched their global loyalty program, Hyatt Hotels. And Jeff was the person responsible for that and really, led the relaunch of Hyatt's loyalty program, ran Hyatt's loyalty program for years. Before that was at Google, and before that was at American Airlines. And so these are all people who, frankly, really know what they're talking about. And your predecessors in this course all seem to really like the videos. So that's that. And then we get into talking a little bit more about the overall learning experience. So I will just close with 2 thoughts. In designing this course, number one, I've tried to make it relevant to B2B, B2C, big companies, small companies, industrial companies, and not just relevant to B2C, not just relevant to big companies. And one of the examples I use, we do 3 webinars during the course where we more interactively than this is necessarily sort of a monologue, but in a more interactive way, we talk during the course. And I always use the example of a woman who took the MBA version of this course and went on to apply the methods we're talking about in a little company. They only had, a handful of employees that made wedding dresses. And how do you do this in a little startup that makes wedding dresses? And interesting story when we get into that, as well as other companies. So we cover all kinds of different companies in the examples and content. And the other comment is that I've really tried to make this course very, very real world. As Mark mentioned, I spent my whole career as a practitioner, meaning the person actually responsible for really doing this in the real world and accountable for the outcomes of it, and not as an academic. And so I've tried to make the course very, very real world practical. And you will notice, particularly in the webinars, I will often say, if you're doing this in the real world, here is something in particular to pay attention to. So that's an overview, walkthrough of the course. Mark, I'll flip it back to you.
Thank you so much, Professor. Thank you for that detailed overview of all the modules. Thank you for all that information, all those stories. Thank you so much, Professor. So FACT, in short, is a convenient and interactive learning experience. So all the videos are short and engaging videos, something that we often refer to as bite-sized learning. So as the professor mentioned it, I'm going to quickly skip to the bottom. You can see that this is a 6-week course, and our students, we anticipate, usually put between 4 to 6 hours per week into this program. And when I bring up the short engaging videos, the reason why I skip to the end and talk about the hours per week is that in a traditional academic environment, if you see that a course demands 4 to 6 hours per week, usually that means 2 hours at a time, 2 or 3 days a week in a traditional academic learning environment. But the whole point of online learning is that everyone's lives are different. Everyone's work lives are different. The demands on your week, we only have 168 hours, and there are lots of different things wanting every hour of that week. So we break it up into what we call bite-sized learning. So these short engaging videos, we understand that oftentimes people don't have an hour at a time, or even an hour and a half or 2 hours at a time to focus on their learning. Sometimes you only have 15 minutes here, 20 minutes there. Maybe you have a 30-minute train commute. Well, with that in mind, we've broken up the videos into 5 to 10, sometimes 15, but mostly 5 to 10-minute videos that are easily digestible, easily consumable. So a lot of our students, sometimes they watch 1 or 2 videos on the train to work, 1 or 2 videos on the way home from work. So however you can find 4 to 6 hours in your week, we have made it possible so that no matter where you can find those 4 to 6 hours, you will find this course to be convenient and flexible for the needs of your life. Professor O'Toole mentioned those expert guest speakers, 6 of the best minds in the world when it comes to customer loyalty that are joining us in this program. Live faculty webinars, it says 2. Professor O'Toole said 3, but we're having live faculty webinars where you'll be able to engage directly with Professor O'Toole and ask him questions directly throughout this program. And those next few things that we have mentioned there, case examples, discussion activities, triad activities. Again, the emphasis that I want to mention is just repeating what the professor said. This is meant to be done in the real world. So the case examples are from the real world. The triad activities are so that you can work on applying this immediately and directly in your current profession, in any future profession. You'll be able to apply what you're learning immediately. And the discussion activities, I'll talk a little bit more about that on the next slide, but this is not a strictly, completely asynchronous learning environment. You're going to be having moderated discussions led by our course leaders so that you will also have an opportunity to learn from each other. Those of you in the cohort, it is not simply by Professor O'Toole that you will be taught. You will also be learning from each other as well. So if some of you are in the exact same industry on different continents, or maybe you're in completely different industries, but right down the road from each other, you'll be able to learn from each other as well. And don't be scared when it says on the screen knowledge checks. I know some people, they see something like test or quiz and they say, oh no, I don't like tests or quizzes. Sure, but knowledge check simply means that we give you the opportunity to make sure that you are digesting and processing this information. So we don't just throw a lot of learning content at you and say, well, we hope that you feel good about it. We give you these knowledge checks so that you feel supported, so that you feel like, and you know that you are processing and retaining this information so that you can bring it into your current and future careers. So the knowledge checks are just one more example of support that you will have during this program. Now, those course leaders I just mentioned, who are course leaders? Well, in a traditional academic environment, a course leader might be like a teaching assistant or a TA in a traditional college environment. But what we have are these course leaders who are subject matter experts. Again, they are practitioners in the field. They are currently working in this field, and they are going to be the ones who are going to be frequently communicating with you to guide you through the experience. They'll be giving you feedback on your assignments. They'll also be having online office hours to answer any questions you have. And they're the ones who are going to be moderating those discussions so that you can have a more engaging, dynamic experience. So they're going to be the ones really leading those discussions to help you learn and network from each other. And so they'll be guiding you along the way. So between our rockstar faculty, our incredible guest speakers, our amazing course leaders, and our 24/7 program support for any technical issues that you might have, you are going to be supported in a variety of different ways throughout this program. And upon successful completion of the program, Kellogg Executive Education will grant you a verified digital certificate of completion to participants. As you can see there, it's graded as pass-fail. If you receive 80%, if you complete 80% of the course, then you're good. and you obtain the certificate of completion. And this, because it's a verified digital certificate, you can put this on your resume, your CV, your LinkedIn. And this is not only an amazing networking opportunity, you put it in LinkedIn, you'll find people who have taken this course in the past, you'll find future members of other cohorts, but also you'll be able to bring this into any current and future employers and be able to say, look, I have this incredible knowledge that I can put to work right now for the company, and I learned it from the best in the world. So it's just another feather in your cap, another great advantage of this program. And with that, the next step is program support is going to be putting up a link in the chat box right now. So please go ahead, open up that chat box, and you will see that program support has put up a clickable link for you to click on to register for Kellogg Executive Education's upcoming program, Customer Loyalty, a Strategic Approach. Please go ahead and click on that link so that you can register for the next cohort as soon as possible. Just go ahead and click on the link. Keep it open on your computer. If you're anything like me, your browser already has 50 tabs open. So go ahead, click on that link, make it the 51st tab open in your browser. Don't miss the opportunity to join the next cohort of Customer Loyalty, a Strategic Approach with Professor Tom O'Toole at Kellogg Executive Education. So please go ahead, click on that link. While if you're thinking of any questions, Professor, I always love the story about the bridal boutique, about the wedding dress shop using a customer loyalty program. Without treading into any proprietary issues, are there other examples that might apply to the students on the line? Are there any other examples of people who have thought to themselves, I don't know if a customer loyalty program is for me, and it's worked out really well, that actually, no, it was successfully, a customer loyalty program worked out successfully for them?
Well, there's one gentleman who took this course earlier, the online course that we're talking about here, and it was an industry that I would not have even thought about. And I know that he reported back later having applied successfully what we talked about, and that is a gentleman who's the president of a large company of automobile dealers, and the automobile dealers didn't have a loyalty program, and introduced the practices that we talk about in this course, and according to his report had a very good experience with that. But what I find interesting is loyalty programs, which as we currently know them started out in 1981 in the travel industry, and now have expanded not just to what I think of as the big three, retail, travel, financial services, but are expanding in more and more and more industry categories. I mentioned healthcare, consumer services, really an ever expanding set of industries. And that's not simply because they're the established practice, but frankly, it's because if designed properly, and I always emphasize that, if designed properly, and if there's a good business case for them, a positive business case, they work. And that's why you see companies that didn't launch with loyalty programs like Uber and Airbnb and other companies where you have take those two examples, very, very smart, experienced CEOs. And what do? They introduce loyalty programs. Well, why is that? It's because they work for all the reasons that we talk about in this course. It looks like, Mark, we have a question in the chat. And you know what, Mark, I'll let you take that one. Does the 4 to 6, well, I can take it. I designed the course. I should know the answer to that. Does the 4 to 6 hours per week include out of class work time? Also, is there a specific day or time for the live lectures? The 4 to 6 hours per week, I would say probably does include the out of class work time. I know the videos, and you may be interested in, we shot 70 hours of video for this course and edited down, to a very tight set of videos for each of the weeks. So Sharon, in answer to your question, I would say yes, it does include the out of class work. Is there a specific day and time for live lectures? There are specific times, I know, for the live webinars that I do during the course. And I believe, but I'll leave this to others to confirm for you. Mark mentioned that there are 2 course leaders who you will be working with, and I'll tell you, they're superb. They've worked on this course for a couple of years now, and I believe they do schedule specific live times to talk with you as well. But Sharon, the short answer to your second question is yes, although there aren't a lot, but yes. So Sharon, I hope that's helpful, and if not, the course support can definitely get you more detail. Felipe, I see the loyalty programs are an important topic in the course. Yes, definitely. How do you apply a customer loyalty program to a B2B company, such as a logistics operator? Well, Felipe, the answer, that's where the strategic approach really comes in, because here's B2B in a nutshell, is that the strategic foundation of a customer-centric approach, evaluating or differentiating the customer value, all of that applies. Everything we talk about with the business case applies. What typically doesn't directly apply in most cases in B2B is a quote rewards program where you earn and redeem something. You know what I mean? And so like you earn points and redeem points. That often doesn't translate into B2B, particularly if you have very large enterprise customers, for example. And so that is where we talk about, what do you do if you're not going to do a rewards program? Because one of the decisions is, should I use a rewards program? and in B2B, sometimes the answer, because of the nature of the business, is no. Other methods are better suited to it. And so in short, with B2B, we conclude a loyalty strategy always applies. That loyalty strategy may or may not include a B2C type loyalty program. So I hope that's meaningful to you, Felipe. And again, if you take the course, which I hope you do, we can definitely chat more about that in one of the webinars. Jeff, will what we learn successfully apply to a multi-merchant loyalty program? Yes, Jeff. The answer is, by multi-merchant, here's what I think you mean is for a buy local loyalty program, like I live in a community called Wilmette, Illinois, which is a suburb of Chicago. And so I think, Jeff, if I'm reading your question right, what you mean is, if you were going to do a loyalty program for Wilmette, Illinois, and say, shop with all of the merchants, the restaurants, stores, so on and so forth in Wilmette, Illinois, which is a small suburb, buy local, then could you do a loyalty program for that? Actually, yes, you could. I mean, it's interesting. The short answer is yes. And I can say in good conscience, it absolutely would apply. And Jeff, again, like I commented to Felipe, if you ever wanted to chat more about that, glad to do so. But yeah, that would. It would the watch out there. There's a couple watch outs there, which one would be being sure that the economics of it, work for everybody, because it has to have a positive business value to the participants. And the other, the system enablement, which we don't go real deep on systems in this course, but the system enablement can be a little bit different in that type of a program, but it's all very doable. And glad to give you some ideas about that, Jeff, if ever you want. Okay.
Well, I just wanted to quickly follow back question about the 4 to 6 hours per week covering all the work. That's why it's a range, Sharon. So like and it's not just the videos, that is everything. Because if some people, they work faster, then it's more like 4 hours. They work a little slower, it's more like 6 hours. So yeah, the 4 to 6 hours includes everything. But for the question about the specific day and time for the live lectures, because every cohort might be a little different, a question I will call like a logistical question. So if you have any logistical questions or any tuition questions, anything like that, please send those to Kellogg@emeritus.org. So that's Kellogg. Don't forget, it's 2 L's and 2 G's, Kellogg@emeritus.org for any logistical questions like that, just to circle back to what Sharon was asking.
And Mart has a question that's in the chat. So let me grab that one, Mark. Mart, I can answer part of your question. What time are the live sessions usually in European time? The ones that I do, and just to be real clear, I mentioned that there are 3 live webinars that I do. And then Mark said, there were 2. There's one to basically kick off the course, because a lot of the people who take the course won't be on this call. And so it's meeting them for the first time. So there's one to kick off the course. And then during the course, there are 2 live webinars that I do. And basically what we do in those is to try to focus on specific topics that are particularly important, and then to answer your questions is really what those are for. And those are always at the same time. Those are always at 9 a.m. Chicago time. And so it depends where you are in Europe, what that would convert to into your time, what the local time would be. But the ones that I do, the 3 that I do, are always at 9 a.m. Chicago time, if that helps you any. And then, as Mark said, I don't know about the ones with the team leaders. I mean, the program leaders.
Thank you so much, Professor. That's enormously helpful. And also, just in case any of you are now thinking of this follow-up question, this webinar is being recorded. Any future webinars will be recorded. So even if you have a conflict with a specific webinar, you will be able to access it later. Sharon's got another question popping up in the Q&A box. Thank you, Sharon, for your question. Will we discuss B2C loyalty options? So you just talked, Professor, a little bit of how traditional rewards programs don't necessarily work B2B, but do we also cover loyalty options other than rewards in B2C as well?
Yeah, Sharon, we do touch on that. And basically, you know, in the sense of, is a rewards program the right answer in a given situation? I'll tell you, sometimes it's not, because the economics often don't work, or they're in certain categories. Like, I'll give you an example. Grocery stores are historically difficult to do profitable loyalty programs. And there are some examples, but grocery stores tend to be a category where it can be challenging and really important to get the business case right, because of the economics of that business compared to other businesses. But so, you know, so the question is, so what do you do if you don't want to do a rewards program? What are the other options? And one of the things that we talk about is what more and more companies are going to today actually is a program built entirely on personalization, without the rewards, the earn and redeem dimension to it. And so we do talk about that. I'm trying to think, that would be in probably the week on personalization, and then the week on design of loyalty programs. So yes, Sharon, we do touch on that. Again, I'm happy to go more deeper on any of these subjects, because I mean, these are subjects that you could spend, you know, a lot of time on any one of them, including Sharon's question. But we do, you know, in the question in practical terms is, what do you do if you can't or don't want to do a rewards program? And talk a little bit about that. And the answer is largely around personalization. So, okay, I hope that's helpful, Sharon.
And actually, I wrote that down, Professor, during your presentation when you were talking about personalization with loyalty drivers and trigger marketing in Module 3 as being one of your favorites. I actually wrote that down just in case no one asked a question like, can you tell us a little bit more about Module 3 and personalization? And because I'm always trying to skip ahead to the course itself.
Yeah, no, I'll tell you, just while we give people a minute here for any other questions, in the MBA in class version of this program, it's interesting, over time, the personalization part of that has gotten bigger and bigger and bigger, as that's exactly what's happening out in the real world, in actual practice, is companies are not moving away from rewards programs, but more and more they're using rewards programs as the vehicle for personalization. And in some cases, for different reasons, in different cases, particularly retailers, in some cases are dropping the rewards component and just going all in on the personalization. Any other questions for anyone that we can answer for you?
Yeah, I was going to say, Professor, I think you've answered. I mean, it was a fantastic presentation, and you've gone through these questions really efficiently. So do you have any final thoughts while our future students are thinking of a possible last question before I let everybody go?
No, you know, I'll just reiterate a point that I made earlier, which is I tried to make the entire course, and you'll notice, you know, the webinars in particular, try to make the entire course very, very practical. And I always, you know, say to the participants, you know, I was you, the person responsible for really doing this in the real world, and try to make the course very much oriented to equipping you to do that. So that and to ultimately grow the value of your customers. So that's all that I would say. I do hope you'll take the course, put a lot of work into it, try to do a good job for everybody, try to keep making it better, and look forward to talking to you on the webinars.
We actually have, I want to get one last question in. Are we going into details and tools of how to do segmentation?
Mart, we talk about that. I will say, conceptually, we don't talk about tools. I mean, I want to be really clear in answering your question. You know, segmentation tools like statistical tools or different ways to do segmentation. I mean, we could easily spend, you know, several hours just on the subject of segmentation. And so we talk about segmentation conceptually. I mean, basically the flow of the discussion is customer centricity leads to customer heterogeneity, leads to segmentation, leads to customer differentiation, leads to so on. And so we talk about it in that context, and conceptually, we don't go deep on tools, just to be perfectly honest with you about it. Okay, so I hope that's helpful, Mark.
Thank you so much, Professor. So I'm going to let everybody go. I want to thank Professor Tom O'Toole so much for his time, his expertise, and his passion on the subject. Professor O'Toole, thank you so much, sir. And thank you all so much for joining us here today. If you have any further questions, please send them to Kellogg@emeritus.org. Again, that's Kellogg, 2 L's, 2 G's, at emeritus.org. You can see program support. Just put that link back up in the chat box. So before we go anywhere, please click on that link right now. Keep that open in your browser so it's there when you need it, right there in the chat box. Again, any additional questions, please send them to Kellogg at emeritus.org. Thank you all so much for your time today, and have a beautiful day, everybody.